Now all of a sudden the play action pass, it marries up with the under center game. There's just so many things an offensive coordinator can do. And Liam Cohen, I've been very impressed with him. This version of the Tampa offense, it's fun to watch.
Yep. Get into that in a second. Oh, here's a little trickery. Straight Brown back to Goff. Flea flickers, got Laporta wide open. Sam Laporta, foot race towards the end zone, diving, touchdown.
Unreal.
Turn to page 140, flea flicker.
Come on, if you're not having fun watching that, you don't have a heartbeat. Toss it to Montgomery, back to St. Brown, back to Goff. Too much to handle, and Laporta, very tough to defend. Awesome execution.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast, presented by Verizon, the NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I'm your host, Dave Helman, and Tom Brady said it best. We're having fun. Tom's having fun. I'm having fun. The Detroit Lions had a ton of fun on Sunday afternoon. I think everybody had fun except for maybe Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. We will get to that momentarily. But welcome into the show. Welcome in to our Week 6 recap. Fun day of games. So much to get to. If you haven't already done it, make sure you hit us with a subscribe on Spotify. Go find us on Apple Podcasts. We are here all season long, before and after every jam-packed Sunday, bringing you the latest in the NFL. We appreciate it. Let's get right down to it. I'm calling Week 6 the day the favorites struck back. I mean, we love the NFL for the parity, for the upsets, shocking results every weekend. You never know what's going to happen. Week 6 felt like it was about restoring order. One game left to play, Monday Night Football, Bills and Jets tonight. Heading into that game, favorites this weekend are an impressive 12-1 straight up. 10-2-1 against the spread. So even using the spread, a dominant day for the favorites in the NFL. Felt like a Sunday about separation. You had Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, separating himself from Jayden Daniels, the young up-and-comer. Really fun game. The Tampa Bay Bucs and the Atlanta Falcons separated themselves in the NFC South. 2 division games down there. Whole bunch of rookie quarterbacks stepping up and separating. So much to get to. But as you might guess, we're going to start down in Big D, where everybody was getting in on the fun, including Tom Brady. Everybody except those Dallas Cowboys. The Lions go down to AT&T Stadium and smash the Cowboys 47-9. It's the third straight beatdown at home for the Cowboys to open the season. First time in a long time they have started a season 0-3, and all of those games looking very lopsided. It's no wonder Jerry Jones, on his birthday, no less, was forced to answer questions about Mike McCarthy's job status right after this game.
Oh, I haven't even considered that. I'm not considering that. Just so you're clear, I'm not considering that.
But you've done it once
I
before.
wouldn't be a hypothetical in that matter. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you? Okay, well, I'm not going to hypothetical with you about when I'd consider coaching change in light of the timing we're sitting here with. I'm not at all.
Spicy words coming from the owner and general manager of the Dallas Cowboys. And like I said, it's never fun to watch your team get beat. Especially cannot be fun on your birthday. Still, and look, it's not unusual to hear Jerry Jones take issue with a line of questioning after a bad Dallas loss. He talks after every game. That part's not surprising. But this early into the season, Week 6, 3-3, still mathematically at least all out there for the Dallas Cowboys. But when you lose games like this as badly as the Cowboys have at home, it's a little earlier than I would have guessed. Cowboys have now allowed 119 points in 3 regular season games. They only allowed 127 in all 8 of their regular season games at AT&T Stadium all of last season. So something clearly off in Dallas. Have a feeling it's going to be a very uncomfortable week for the Cowboys heading into their bye week, trying to get something right. No soul searching necessary on the other side of the matchup. Just what I imagine had to have been a very fun plane ride back to Detroit. Remember, the Lions went into their bye week red hot. Jared Goff didn't throw an incompletion against Seattle on Monday night a couple weeks ago. They look just as good as they did before taking the time off. 47 points. Goff with another phenomenal performance. 3 touchdown passes to 3 different players. We heard the great call of the Sam Laporta flea flicker. Amon-Ra St. Brown also getting in on the act. Jamison Williams with an explosive touchdown catch. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs were everywhere. This was domination basically from the kickoff. I mean, within 10 minutes of this game starting, it looked like the Lions were in a class of their own against the Cowboys. So much fun when you have 4 different guys get into the end zone, spread the wealth, show what you're all about. And if it wasn't evidence enough just watching the game, take it from Tom Brady as the LFG player of the game. Probably not who you would guess, which I really appreciated.
Every game that I broadcast, I award the LFG Player of the Game to that one player who makes me say, let's go.
Penei, congratulations winning the LFG Player of the Game. Look, the first offensive lineman to win this award, but I've been watching you for a few years, and you just blow me away with your ability in the run game, pass game. But I'm not interested in talking about the run game right now. We can get to that. I want to hear about this almost touchdown rush that you had on a ladder. How long have you guys been working on that play?
We've been cooking it since last year, to be honest. We wanted to run it the primetime game, but the opportunity didn't present itself, and we came into this game wanting to do it. So, yeah.
It looked like a smooth operation. What is Frank going to say to you in the locker room as they called him downfield, which is so tight? But what's he going to say to you?
I don't know, but I hope it's good.
That's
because,
right.
Yeah, that's tough.
That would have been a sweet one to have for you, but it's just so impressive what you guys are doing up front. I think you guys are the most talented offensive line in the league. How's that group come together? What's that mentality when you got Montgomery and Gibbs back there and you guys are called upon to set the tone every single week?
We just kind of take that approach of physicality and violence. We all kind of same like-minded men, and we come in each and every day ready to work. And it's always about each other, you know. I can't do this thing without them, and they make it easy for me to come in and be great every day.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that echoes so much of what I heard from your team all week, really from what I've seen from you guys as you've emerged and you've been part of this whole process. Tell me about what Coach Campbell means to you in terms of his leadership and the way that he sets the tone for you.
Man, I look up to that man like he's a father figure, to be honest. Just the way he preaches and what he preaches, it lines up with what I have mentally and what I believe in and what my values are. And it's just easy to follow a guy like that, you know, when his energy is so contagious and all you want to do is just fight.
Yeah, it looks like it, man. Congratulations to you. Great job coming off the bye. Great job with that award. Take that one to the house, man. You deserve it. You earned it. Really happy for you.
Appreciate you. Go.
All right, if the right tackle is Tom Brady's LFG player of the game, I'm guessing the offense had a pretty good day in this one. And yeah, Detroit goes for 184 yards on the ground, 492 total yards, and that's on a day where they pulled the starters and stopped trying with a lot of ball game left in this thing. Let's dive into it. Let's go another layer deeper on Lions 47, Cowboys 9 with our guy, Fox Sports' own Ralph Vacchiano. Ralph, here's my stat for you, man. 3 home games for the Cowboys this year. They are allowing an average of 216 rushing yards per game at AT&T Stadium this season. I mean, there's a lot of places you could talk about what the Cowboys are doing wrong, but that seems like the place to start for me.
Yeah, it's terrible. And, you know, I don't want to discount what they did today. I know their defense was really banged up, and that's a huge problem. And, you know, you go in there without, Parsons, without DeMarcus Lawrence and Eric Kendricks and Deron Bland, and it just, you've taken so many key players away. But this is really not a today problem. This is a season-long problem for them. It's a season-long problem at home for them. And it's one that, again, like so many of their issues, we knew heading into the season that they were unable to stop the run. They weren't a good defense up front. They weren't a physical defense, which you need. And look, you just saw a really good physical team in the Detroit Lions that shows you all the things you need to be a good team in this league. And again, this is a game that got away from everybody, and I get it. You don't want to put too much into it, but the way they played the game is the way you thought the Cowboys should be able to play the game. And, certainly they're not capable of it. And if they can't do it at home, which, obviously they're 0-3, which has got to be stunning to them. I don't know how this season gets turned around. Usually you turn it around at home.
Well, they get their bye week to sort things out. I mean, we'll see what happens. We won't have to wait long to find out what's going on with the Cowboys, because coming out of the bye week, they play San Francisco, a team that they haven't been able to get past when they've been at their best. So I'm very curious to see how that one goes for them in a couple of weeks. But I mean, the run defense is part of it, obviously. But then on the other side, it really feels as simple as the Cowboys just can't do anything on the lines. I mean, 53 rushing yards, 3 yards per carry. The run game, with the exception of that win in Pittsburgh last week, has been non-existent for the Cowboys. It doesn't matter if it's Zeke Elliott. It doesn't matter if it's Rico Dowdle. And without a run game, Dak Prescott had nowhere to go with the ball. 2 ugly interceptions in this game. It feels all bad. And for me, it starts with the inability to do anything on either side of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, the line was terrible. And again, you could certainly, I'm sure they would make I don't know if they would use it as an excuse, but people might say, well, the game got out of hand. They weren't trying to run. The Detroit Lions could pin the pass rush and just go after Dak Prescott. And all that is true. But this was happening in the first quarter before the game got out of hand. And again, it's been happening all season long. The offensive line has not been what it once was, which I think after losing a couple of pieces in the offseason, we all kind of knew there might be some struggles. The running game, which we all harped on when they didn't sign a running back in the offseason, has been absolutely atrocious. If you can't run the ball and you can't protect your quarterback, well, there goes your offense. Because what happens is exactly what we saw, that it's all now on Dak Prescott, who, by the way, really only has one viable receiver to throw to in CD Lamb. And the defenses can just sit back, wait for him to throw, to kind of have an idea of where he's going. You saw it even especially on the interception in the end zone, because at that point, there was no way that the Cowboys were going to be able to run in the red zone. Everyone knew it, so they dropped everybody back into coverage. And of course, there was somebody there to, Brian Branch made a great diving play to, pick off the pass. But of course, there was somebody there to get in the way of the touchdown pass, because they knew it was coming and they knew that the Cowboys couldn't do anything else. You saw it on the 4th and 2 they went for from their own 38 late in the first half. Everybody knew they couldn't run. It's just the way the Cowboys are. And that's going to be a problem all year long. If you can't run, you can't pick up the good short yardage, the tough short yardage. You can't score in the red zone. It all comes back to that offensive line, that running game, and it makes it really just a complete one-dimensional mess.
Jerry Jones was quoted after the game as saying he's not ready to talk about any sorts of personnel changes. Obviously, with Mike McCarthy being in the last year of his deal, that speculation is going to follow them all year. Maybe this will age poorly. I don't see Jerry Jones doing something like that so early in the season, especially when you have the bye week to tinker and try to sort things out. Honestly, Ralph, I'm kind of over talking about the Cowboys right now. Like, I know they're the Cowboys, but after a performance like that, I do want to make sure we give this Lions team the proper degree of shine. I mean, you look at the totality of this season so far. The Lions doubled up Tampa Bay and went 1 of 7 in the red zone the day they lost to the Buccaneers. If not for that, it's incredibly easy to imagine this as an undefeated team. Jared Goff with a passer rating of above 150 for back-to-back weeks. We thought of the Lions as a contender. It sucks for them. It looks like they lost Aiden Hutchinson for quite a while in this game. But other than that, one very big caveat, there's not a long list of teams in the NFL you feel better about than the Detroit Lions.
No, I agree. And we'll get to Hutchinson in a second, but there's so much to like about this Lions team. They were really underperforming on defense. I think that their defense, I think their secondary has a lot of talent in it. I think obviously with Hutchinson, their pass rush has a lot of talent there. They weren't really showing how good they could be on defense. On offense, they certainly were. I mean, this is a team that now has put up 40 points in back-to-back weeks. They put up more than 450 yards in 2 of their 5 games this season. And, they do it in so many ways. Amon-Ra St. Brown was barely in this game. I mean, he had, I think, 4 catches total, and they still put up all those yards and all those points because they have, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and, so many, Jameson Williams and Tim Patrick comes out of nowhere. And they just have so many things that they do so well, so many guys that they can rely on. And, as Tom Brady said over and over during the broadcast, probably the best offensive line in football to make it all go. So on offense, they're tremendous. I do worry about their defense. It was middling in the stats, and now losing one of the best pass rushers in the league is a bit of a problem, I think. Obviously, we don't know for sure what's going on with Aiden Hutchinson. It certainly looked like a long-term injury for him. That's a big blow for the Detroit Lions, but there's still a lot of good players there and just a terrific coach in Dan Campbell. They built one of the deepest teams, I think, in the entire league.
Terrific coach in Dan Campbell, terrific offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, which it's an upset he's still there. Maybe he just wants to be there forever, but you've got to believe this will be the year that launches him into a head coaching job with the way this offense is once again playing. Yeah, Jameson Williams led the Lions in receiving, and I think when you consider the 2 running backs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams is probably your 4th or 5th option in this offense, and he's capable of leading the team in receiving and having these types of explosive plays. This is a tough team to slow down, and this is not the preview episode for week 7, so we don't have to get into it right now. But up next, it's the Minnesota Vikings, the undefeated Minnesota Vikings coming off of a bye week. So just go ahead and circle that one right now as one of the games to watch for next week. All right. Huge win for the Lions over the Cowboys. Talk about a statement. Let's jump to another big game in the NFC East. Ralph, you're going to stay with us to talk about this one. I thought Commanders Ravens absolutely lived up to the hype. The battle of the reigning MVP and the Heisman Trophy winner Lamar against Jayden Daniels. The Ravens get a 30-23 win against Washington at home in Baltimore. And yeah, I mean, the Ravens had a 14-point lead in the 4th quarter of this game. They looked incredibly impressive. But I think what's going to stand out for me the most is Washington went punch for punch with this team. Like this, we talk about Washington as an upstart. It's incredibly surprising that they sit at 4-2 on the season, but they looked like they belonged in this game for the most part.
I agree. There was a moment in the 3rd quarter where I thought the Ravens were about to pull away, and I thought, okay, well, this is Washington's last drive. If they can score here, make it a game. Otherwise, it's going to be one of those things where they stayed as close as they could for as long as they could, but the better team pulled away. Washington went right down and scored, and they stick, like you said, they took punch for punch against a much better team. I mean, the Ravens, they were my Super Bowl pick. I know they started 0-2. They've been dominant since then. They can run the ball better than anybody. Lamar Jackson is playing at an MVP level again. They just have so many good components, and the Commanders don't yet. They are a rebuilding team with a rookie quarterback, very good team. They have a lot of good things working for them. A better team than I thought they were going to be, but not in the Ravens class just yet. And yet they hung with them. They're so well coached. They're so solid in most areas. They have more weapons than you think. Remember, they were without Brian Robinson, their best running back in this game, and they still were able to stay in that game. And so much of that is the coaching. And of course, Jayden Daniels, who has just been absolutely terrific. It doesn't have to win games on his own, but is doing enough. He's not just managing a game. He's making big plays. He's making smart decisions. He's making great, crisp, accurate throws. You saw the clear difference between him and Lamar Jackson, but you could see little flashes of why people think that he will be on that level, maybe sooner than later.
I know Jayden said this past week that he doesn't love being compared to Lamar Jackson, but apologies to him. It's easy to see why people do it because, so many clutch, well-placed throws in this game. His connection with Terry McLaurin is getting incredibly impressive. McLaurin had 2 touchdowns in this game, one of which was, I think we think of a circus catch as like a 50-yard catch, but his one in the low red zone today was one of the best ones this season, I thought. Phenomenal contested catch. But Jayden Daniels also possesses that ability. I mean, only 22 rushing yards in this game, but when you can back out of a pressure and convert a 3rd and 5 when it looked like it was going to be a sack, it is so valuable. And other than Lamar Jackson himself, I don't know how many guys in the league do it as well as this kid does.
there really are only a handful of guys. Maybe Josh Allen is up there. Probably Patrick Mahomes, obviously at his best. Guys who can be as solid and good in the pocket as they are outside the pocket, and not just when they run. Obviously, Lamar Jackson has just superb running ability. Jayden Daniels could be right there too, but it's their ability to make plays when they're on the run, when they step outside of trouble and they can still make passes and make good decisions. That's just something that's hard to do. A lot of quarterbacks are much more comfortable on one or the other, not both. And obviously Lamar Jackson wouldn't be an MVP candidate every year if he wasn't comfortable with both. Jayden Daniels, for a rookie, looks comfortable with both of them. And a lot of credit also goes to his offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, who is letting him do more and more every week, but not asking him to do too much. I mean, you're not putting him in positions where he can't make the play. He's just, well-designed plays, getting veteran weapons to help him out. Zach Ertz, Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson when he's there, Austin Eckler, so many guys around him that are just put in good positions to make plays. It's a well-oiled machine on offense, especially because I don't really love their offensive line, but even that's playing better than I think a lot of people thought, and it's all helping Jayden Daniels out.
I know we say there are no moral victories in the NFL. I'm going to make an exception. This felt like a moral victory to me for the Washington Commanders. They're still on top of the NFC East, even with Philly getting a win on Sunday. So I feel just fine about them. And now, just like we did for the Lions, let's make sure we give the proper amount of credit to the winners. You just mentioned it. I mean, look, I know they started 0-2. And maybe it's a good thing that the Ravens did start 0-2, because otherwise we might be having some reckless conversations about these guys, Ralph, because through 6 games, this is one of the most brutally efficient offenses I can think of. I mean, I know San Francisco set all kinds of crazy marks last year. Baltimore seems like they're going to be right there with those guys. I mean, Lamar only threw 6 incompletions on Sunday. His interception, absolutely not on him. If you're watching the game, the opening possession of this game, the ball bounces off Mark Andrews' hands and into a defender's arms. The Ravens continue to churn out rushing yards. And I mean, this is the stat for me, man. The Ravens went interception, field goal, punt to open the game, looking kind of rusty, looking kind of, slow out of the gate. And then they put together 5 straight scoring drives, and they didn't stop scoring points until it was time to take the victory formation. I mean, it's hard to compete with that type of efficiency.
Yeah, look, if you're a fan of defense wins championship, they need some work on some areas of their defense for sure. But that offense is exactly what you want for a playoff team, for a championship contender. They can run the ball better than anyone, and they do it with Derrick Henry, who might be better at it than any running back in the league, and Lamar Jackson. And the combo of those two and their running styles make it impossible for defenses. And then you add in Lamar Jackson's ability to play inside the pocket and outside the pocket, and the weapons that he has, and the fact that especially the last 2 weeks, he's really playing at an MVP level. Only 2 interceptions on the entire season, by the way, including that one today that wasn't his fault. So he's just playing as well as any quarterback in football, and backed up by good offensive line play, that strong running game. They steamroll people. When they get rolling, it really is like a rock going downhill. Who can get in front of it and slow them down? Not many teams can. And, that's, even if they have defensive issues, that's really going to help them out as they go towards the playoffs. And it's exactly what you want to do late in the year and in the playoffs. If you can run the ball like that, you can win a lot of games.
I thought before the season that the Ravens' losses on the offensive line might be a problem for them. I think I'm ready to write my apology, it's ironic. It looked like it would be a problem in week 1, but then you got to stop and take stock of the fact that, hey, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, and you better have a defense that can stop the run and get after the passer the way the Chiefs can if you're going to beat the Ravens, because if you're not fantastic at both of those things, I don't think Baltimore's run game is even going to give you a chance to worry about the other stuff.
Yeah, and it's so that offensive line absolutely looked like an issue the first week, maybe the first 2 weeks of the season. Certainly better lately. And again, they get the help of essentially two running backs, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, 2 different styles, where if you're not sure which one of them is going to take off, it has to keep the defense on its heels. And again, if you think you're playing the run and Lamar Jackson can start to run and then drop back and pick apart the secondary. So there's so many things they can do. You really have to have a solid defense all around to be able to play against them. And you're probably looking at only a handful of teams in the AFC. The Chiefs certainly have a defense that's capable of doing that can really stand up and stop that kind of a diverse offense.
Really entertaining game in Baltimore. But man, the Ravens rolling from 0-2 to 4-2. Can't say enough about how impressed I am with their offense, but easily one of the most entertaining games of the day. Always entertaining in the NFC East for various reasons. Sometimes it's for good and sometimes it's for bad. Ralph, as always, man, I appreciate the time.
My pleasure, Dave. Anytime.
Commanders-Ravens was probably the most entertaining game of the day from a pure competition standpoint. Let's go to the third item on our Sunday Six for the craziest game of the day. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and New Orleans Saints squaring off in a wild one. And let's just point this out. We said it in the preview. Let's say it again in the recap. Tampa and really all of the Florida area, so many people in the southeastern part of the country could use a win and a fun distraction. Hurricanes Helene and Milton have come through in the last couple weeks. Tough time for a lot of people down there. Buccaneers fans, you got your win and a very fun distraction. The Buccaneers beat the Saints 51-27 in a game that delivered 78 combined points, almost 900 yards of offense, and 6 total takeaways. Back and forth affair, 34 combined points in the second quarter of this game alone. Don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. At the end of the day, though, it's the Bucs that finish, obviously, with 51 points and almost 600 of those yards. They got their offense going in a big way down in the Superdome. Had a chance to talk to the guys who called it. Adam Amin and Greg Olsen were there for a goofy game, talking about a Bucs offense that is rounding into some impressive shape. Well, guys, I don't have official stats on this, but I'm pretty sure you just called the most chaotic first half of the season so far. But outside of that, other than the craziness, it really felt like over the course of time, this was a big opportunity for the Tampa Bay Bucs to flex their muscles.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that. I've been calling games for 11 years in the NFL. That was the wildest first half I've ever seen. But things settled down, and the veteran quarterback settled down, and Tampa Bay started to roll. I thought the play calling was great on both sides, Liam Cohen and Todd Bowles.
Yeah, I thought the second half, Tampa just completely took over the game. The ground game on the offensive side of the ball, they ran it at will. Baker made just enough plays, and he was super efficient, didn't have to throw it a lot. Of course, had the long one to Chris Godwin that he scored on after breaking the tackle. And then Todd Bowles, he pulled a little magic. He said, okay, rookie quarterback, I gave you a break there in the first half. I let you do some things. He mixed up coverages. He mixed up some of his pressure looks and pretty much suffocated that Saints offense in the second half. So that second half version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's going to be that's a real team here in the NFC. That's going to be a team come into the season. That's going to be hard to beat.
Greg, I wanted to ask you about that. I heard what you said at the end of the broadcast about this Bucs offense being so multiple. The inability to get the run game going has been such a problem for them in recent years. If they can, you're not going to run for 277 every week, but if you can even come close to that level of success on the ground, what does it do for this Tampa Bay offense?
Well, it changes everything because now all of a sudden the entire game is not on the back of Baker Mayfield, and he's been so efficient. He's been so good working those underneath throws and then sprinkling the explosives downfield. But when you can now add in a layer of not just a good run game, but an explosive run game, chunk plays, first and second down, now all of a sudden the play action pass, it marries up with the under center game. There's just so many things an offensive coordinator can do. And Liam Cohen, I've been very impressed with him. This version of the Tampa offense, it's fun to watch.
Yep.
A wild game, a fun game, big win for Tampa. Adam, Greg, I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
We're at the point of the season, too, where it's no longer too early to be concerned with the standings, and it had to be big for the Bucs to win a game coming off of that heartbreaker in overtime to Atlanta. They keep pace with the Falcons. Atlanta gets a big 38-20 win in Carolina on Sunday. So the Bucs staying even with them, at least in terms of win-loss record. See how the division tiebreakers work out. Thought that was huge. And I'm guessing the Buccaneers are just happy to be healthy. They've been ravaged by injury. And in this game, they get Antoine Winfield back. Right tackle Luke Gadecki comes back. Defensive tackle Kalijah Kancey. Guess what? It makes a difference. Antoine Winfield had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Baker Mayfield only sacked one time by the Saints on the day. And Kalijah Kancey with a sack as well. So all of these guys they've been missing making a positive impact in this game. Greg alluded to it. Really impressed. I guess maybe we won't hand out too many attaboys for making life difficult on a rookie quarterback making his first start. Spencer Rattler, I thought handled himself really well in his first NFL start. We will get to him later on in the Sunday Six. We're going to talk rookie quarterbacks. But after halftime, Todd Bowles decided enough was enough, sent the house at Rattler often. Saints had 2 interceptions in the second half, did not put together a scoring drive after that crazy second quarter. So, yes, it's a rookie quarterback, but a nice job by the Tampa Bay defense really buckling down after halftime. They get up to 4-2. I've been saying it all year. This is a really solid team. I'm impressed by what we've seen from them. I think the offense is even better than a lot of people expected. Just in time for another big test. They already beat the Detroit Lions. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They get a Monday night game against the Baltimore Ravens up next. Another opportunity to show people where they stand in the NFC pecking order. Saints Bucs feels like the perfect segue for the fourth item on our Sunday Six, which is just that it was a huge weekend for this rookie quarterback class. 5 rookie QBs started Sunday. So 12 games on the slate this weekend. Almost half of them started by rookies. You had 7 big picks, obviously 6 first-round picks. And then Spencer Rattler, drafted in the 5th round, was the next guy off the board after all of those big names. J.J. McCarthy out injured for the season. So of the healthy available guys among the big-name rookies, only Michael Penix Jr. wasn't in action on Sunday. And honestly, not just exciting to see them get their first action, but all of them acquitted themselves really nicely, starting with Rattler. We mentioned we'd talk about him. Let's do it, because I don't think the box score is going to do justice to just how well this guy played. You can see his final stats, 22 of 40, 243, touchdown and 2 picks. Like I said, I don't think that tells the full story, because we talked about it with Greg and Adam. Todd Bowles sent the kitchen sink at Spencer Rattler in the second half of this game. I'm not going to hate on the guy for the game getting away from him down the stretch, but in the beginning, very, very impressed. Rattler, 11 of 17 for 140 yards in the first half. That's behind an offensive line that has been dealing with injuries all season long, and he lost Chris Olave, arguably the Saints' best receiver, on the 3rd snap of the game. Not only the 3rd snap of the game, but the injury to Olave forced a fumble that was returned by Tampa Bay for a touchdown. So not only is Rattler dealing with all of that, but he found himself in a 14-0 hole before he could even blink. Handled himself nicely. I just said the stats. Couple really nice scoring drives. First career touchdown to Bub Means. Strike to the back corner of the end zone. Not saying we need to start any conversations about the future of the quarterback position in New Orleans, but for a 5th-round pick thrust into the action on a short week, thought it was a really nice day for Spencer Rattler. Plenty to be encouraged about. Speaking of encouragement, I can only imagine what the news cycle looks like in Chicago right now, as we've been talking about it on this show for a few weeks. Caleb Williams has been building since week 3, basically. Slow start to the season. Well, we're here now. And Caleb Williams, if he hasn't already, has officially broken out. Easily the best game of his career early Sunday morning in London against Jacksonville. 23 of 29, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception that I'm positive he'd like to have back, but could argue it was his only questionable decision across 4 quarters. The Bears roll over Jacksonville. They go into their bye week at 4-2. It's incredible. Caleb's average passer rating over the last 3 weeks is 119. It's after averaging a rating of 62 in his first 3 weeks. You look at, if you want to get nerdy with it, his EPA per dropback has it's jumped exponentially. Like you're talking about more than doubling down the second half of this stretch, the last 3 weeks. 7 of his 9 touchdowns have come in the last 3 weeks. And that interception in London on Sunday, his only interception in that span. He's the 3rd Bears rookie quarterback in history to throw 4 touchdown passes in a game. First one since Cade McNown in 1999. The last guy before that, Ray Buvid, was all the way back in 1937. Bears are riding their first 3-game win streak since 2020. It's the type of game where I could read stats like that for the next 15 minutes because we just don't have a lot of quarterback performances like that from a Chicago Bears quarterback. Caleb Williams looking like the real deal. And when he comes off of his bye, he will get to face off against the number 2 overall pick in this draft. Yes, Caleb and Jayden. It's a couple weeks away. The Bears are on their bye week, but it's never too early to get excited about a matchup like that. We've already talked about Jayden on this show, but I do just want to mention it again. 110 passer rating, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Gave the Ravens everything you could expect him to on the road against Baltimore. Caleb's definitely catching up, but Jayden, even in a loss, even in his first loss since the season opener, not cooling off at all. Can't say enough about how impressive both of those guys have been. Let's keep it pushing. I want to finish with the guy that made his first start. I do appreciate the speaking of finishes, Bo Nix in Denver, looking like another rough one for the Broncos' first round draft pick. 22 passing yards through 3 quarters. Denver was getting shut out 23-0 when this thing was heading into the 4th. I do appreciate a never say die attitude, though. Bo Nix put together 200 total yards and 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter of this game. Broncos scored all of their points on their final 3 possessions. They don't get the onside kick in a bid to try to take this thing to overtime. Like I said, it's a nice rally, but 3 quarters of very frustrating offensive football for the Broncos. I think I come to the conclusion this defense, still one of the league's best. I mean, the Chargers scored just 23 points and didn't score in the 4th quarter. But if Denver's opponent scores more than 20 points, I think it's going to be a struggle. In addition to Bo being a rookie, the rest of the supporting cast here in Denver, it's not bad. I don't think it's good enough that you can expect the Broncos to win a ton of shootouts. That's what we've seen through 6 weeks. If you can keep it around 20 or less, got a great shot. If it goes above that, not so promising. But I do appreciate Bo Nix, having a nice finishing chapter to a game that looked like it was going to be really, really ugly. All right, let's wrap it up, though. Last but certainly not least, I was terrified for Drake Maye. He made the first start of his career, the number 3 overall pick in this draft. Patriots made the switch from Jacoby Brissett to Drake earlier this week. Sure, throw him in there against the 4th best pass rush in the NFL. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. What could go wrong? Well, okay, let's get this out of the way. The Texans romped to a 41-21 win. So to some degree, you could say it was very justified. Danielle Hunter had a strip sack that set the Texans up for an easy touchdown. In a lot of ways, it looked like you thought it would look. Houston improves to 5-1. This game was never in doubt after the first quarter. But a really impressive performance in stressful circumstances for Drake Maye. Houston sacked him 4 times, hit him another 8 times, and he did throw 2 interceptions. So I'm making sure to provide all the necessary context that maybe he didn't necessarily set the world on fire, but man, the potential that made Drake Maye such an exciting prospect was on full display. 243 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and he led the Patriots in rushing with 38 yards. Crazy stat here. First quarterback since at least 1950 to throw 3 or more touchdown passes and lead the team in rushing in his first career start. There's not very many quarterbacks who are doing as much as Drake Maye did in their first career game. And if you want some evidence of that, we've got recency. Maye's 3 touchdowns in his debut. It's more than Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, and Bo Nix managed to score in their week 1 debuts this season combined. None of those guys actually scored a touchdown back in week 1. So three touchdowns to open things up. Not a bad day at all for Drake Maye in his debut. One more stat that I really loved. I'm sure you saw the highlight of it. Drake Maye, first career touchdown. It's a 40-yard bomb to Kayshon Boutte. 51 yards in the air. It's the longest completion by a New England quarterback in 3 years. So paints a pretty clear picture of why the Patriots drafted him in the first place. They lose by 20, but I think you feel better about this team after a 20-point loss than you did a week ago. And that's why Drake Maye is in the game. Fifth item on the Sunday 6th is Victory Unlocked. It's brought to you by Zillow. Agents, tours, loans, homes. The Philadelphia Eagles unlocked a victory. They beat the Cleveland Browns 20-16 in the early window on Sunday afternoon. You know what? Sometimes it's difficult and you got to parse through the stats and the metrics and the matchups and figure out who has the winning edge. Sometimes it's really easy. The Eagles unlocked a victory. They got their 2 receivers back. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith played in this game. They were both available for Philadelphia for the first time since week 1. And wouldn't you know it, they combined for 180 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts throwing a tutty to each of his star receivers. The Eagles are 8-0 when that happens. So yeah, get the good players on the field, get them the football. Good things typically happen. Had a chance to catch up with Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma, who were on the call as the Eagles improved to 3-2 with some help from their wideouts. Well, guys, maybe not quite as pretty as the Eagles would prefer, but feels safe to say they're probably pretty happy to have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back in the fold.
Well, they certainly are after missing 3 games and 1 game, respectively. Both wide receivers back in the mix today for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they each scored a touchdown.
And I thought the way that they were used in the offense today was great. Browns made a concerted effort to stop Saquon Barkley, which they did. So then it exposes the cornerbacks right on the outside. And what happens is A.J. Brown, and you have Devontae Smith, and usually you'd see Devontae Smith going on those deep routes. Instead, you have him running the crossing routes. You have A.J. Brown on the one going on the deep routes. So because of that, the way they used the wide receivers offensively today, it really posed challenges for the Browns defense.
You know, guys, I kind of touched on it a minute ago. I'm sure people are going to have critiques of how close this game wound up being, but I was impressed by, the Browns made a surge there at the end of the first half. This could have gotten away from the Eagles. I thought it was impressive the way they kind of reasserted control in the second half.
And that was thanks to Myles Garrett. Makes an incredible play, showing his extraordinary athleticism, blocks a field goal, and then Rodney McLeod returns it for a touchdown. So instead of 17-3 or 14-3, it's 10-10 at the half.
Yeah, and so there's no lack of effort from the Cleveland Browns. You have your great players that are doing just that, playing as hard as they can, playing their butts off. What's happening is that you have the mental errors, you have the penalties, you have all these self-inflicted wounds that are setting them back offensively, not able to score a touchdown again today. That's the issue. And then when you have the Browns defense on the field for so long, of course, things are going to happen unfavorably for the Browns defense.
Big win for the Eagles to get above 500. And Kenny Albert, thanks. Big congrats on your 500th game, my friend. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Dave.
I wanted to make sure to start off with all the nice stuff because it does matter having your playmakers back. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Don't forget about Lane Johnson. Of course, having those guys in the lineup is going to be conducive to winning. Devontae Smith catches a 45-yard crossing route, takes it to the house for the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. A.J. Brown mossing Greg Newsome at the end there, which Jalen Hurts said he checked into that deep ball at the end of the game to get the big first down. 40 yards, helps you run out the clock. It matters having those guys there, and the Eagles are above 500. But I also got to say, I deeply appreciate the commitment to the bit that's going on in Philadelphia. Because, man, does it feel familiar that they get a win, a closer win than expected, because Philly was a 9-point favorite at home. This Cleveland Browns team has been atrocious. Their only win coming against an equally atrocious Jacksonville Jaguars team all the way back in week 2. It's not a win that inspires a ton of confidence. Other than that, it's better than a loss. And that feels like something we've said about the vast majority of Philly's wins going back to the start of the 2023 season. Like, they just feel like they are perfecting the art of the yeah, but win, which I'll say it one more time before any Eagles fans yell at me. It is better than a loss. I wouldn't call it a crisp game. The stat that stands out to me that we pulled up halfway through this game is that the Eagles entered the game with a 4-game scoreless streak in the first quarter. They did not score in the first quarter today against the Browns. It's the first time in franchise history that that's happened. No points in the first 5 quarters. And this was an Eagles team that was coming out of the bye week. Again, you get these guys healthy. Everything's supposed to be hunky-dory. You're going to have time to work out the kinks, to get everybody reps, to self-scout and figure out what's wrong. And I just don't know if 20 points and 372 yards of offense is what you're looking for. Like, it's not awful. And like I said with Kenny and Jonathan, I appreciate the way that they rallied after the blocked field goal, because there was a period of time where this felt like it could get away from Philly, where it felt like the Browns were doing enough. Deshaun Watson was playing well enough. They got down into the low red zone at the end of the game, ultimately settled for a field goal. That could have just as easily been a touchdown that tied this game at 20 apiece. So credit for all of that, but I don't think Philly fans were satisfied by this. And I know it because they were booing the Eagles at halftime of this game. And I'm not even criticizing the fans, rightfully so. We know what it means to play in Philadelphia, and we know how long since that Super Bowl appearance the Eagles have been, we'll call it disjointed, frustrating, perplexing, whatever you want to call it. And then, yeah, if you're watching, the key part of all of this is that after all of this happens and the Eagles get the win, Nick Sirianni's on the sideline chirping at Eagles fans. He's doing the I can't hear you thing, which is typically something you do on the road, but they're at the link. Sirianni told reporters afterward, I was just excited to get the win. I thought I saw him wink at somebody. So a very tongue-in-cheek answer. I don't know. It doesn't project good vibes to me when the head coach is seemingly, guess I can't say definitely, but it sure looked like he was chirping at Eagles fans, and Eagles fans booing a team that improved to 3-2 on the day. This was always going to be something to watch for Philly. We know they have talent. We know they have so many great players. We know they've won so many games. But it was not talent that sunk their season last year. It was vibes. And I'm not ready to say I'm panicking yet, but the vibes don't seem great to me through 5 games. And like I said, coming out of the bye, everything's supposed to be great coming out of the bye. And it doesn't feel like it is when you're beating a bad team by 4, when you were favored heavily, your fans are dissatisfied, and then your coach is dissatisfied at the fans. Can't say I love it, but a win is a win. And getting arguably the 2 best parts of your team, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, rolling, that does matter. So maybe this is just a blip on the radar, but I'm making a mental note right here. Week 6. Keep an eye on the Eagles vibes. We'll see where it goes from here. They are at the Giants next week. I'm guessing another game where they will be favored to win, but we'll see how that goes, because I don't think you can take anything for granted right now. 6th and final item on our Sunday 6. I'm going to call it our WTF block, because it's just a handful of bizarre performances by teams we didn't expect it from. Let's start where Sunday ended. That would be the Sunday night game in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. The Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to say they survive the New York Giants. A weird game. They win 17-7. Joe Burrow scores a 47-yard rushing touchdown on the first possession of the game. And honestly, if Joe Burrow's going to the house from 50 yards out on the first possession, I'm sitting here thinking we're in for a fireworks show. The Bengals defense has been bad. Figured the Giants would score some points. We'll have a 34-31 thriller on our hands. Not the case at all. 17-7. Bengals don't put this thing away until a Chase Brown touchdown late in the game. Just a slog of a game, a very strange game, and it exemplifies perfectly where the Bengals are this season, that they held on for dear life to avoid losing their season, because you lose to the New York Giants to fall to 1-5. It's over for all intents and purposes. So I'm sure deep sigh of relief for the Bengals on that flight back to Cincinnati. It wasn't pretty, but they did get it done. 2-4 feels a hell of a lot more manageable than 1-5. Bengals offensive line. You're not going to play Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns every week, but offensive line, some self-scouting to do. Joe Burrow got knocked around in this game, sacked 4 times. Dexter Lawrence, 7 sacks on the season. I believe that ties him for the league lead. Just phenomenal season, especially with Aaron Donald retiring. Not a stretch to say he's the best defensive tackle in football. Chris Jones would probably take issue with that, but he's right there in that conversation. Phenomenal season from Dexter Lawrence, but just a brutal night for Cincinnati. They do hold the Giants to 7 points. Might be one of those situations where it says more about the Giants than it does about the Bengals. I guess we'll see. The fun thing about this block, though, is that, the Bengals avoid too much scrutiny by simple fact that they win the game, which is more than we can say for the other 2 teams we wanted to highlight in this segment, which it just goes to show what we don't know in the summer. So Joe Burrow playing on one of the biggest contracts in the NFL, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase seeking major contract extensions as well. Team with Super Bowl expectations, scrapping and clawing to stay relevant at 2-4. And what about 2 more teams that had high expectations where Sunday emphasized just how far things have fallen? Jacksonville Jaguars and Cleveland Browns both lose on Sunday. They both fall to 1-5. Jacksonville trounced by the Bears in London in the early game. Cleveland actually played Philly pretty tough, as we talked about early in the show. Bottom line is they are still 1-5. I went, just to make sure I'm not crazy, I went and looked it up. The August projection, the over-under for both of these teams was 8.5 wins. Jacksonville finished 9-8 after leading the division for a lot of last season. Trevor Lawrence signed a 5-year, $275 million extension in the summer. The expectation is that team would take a step and be in the thick of the playoff race. Cleveland was a playoff team last year. Deshaun Watson, we all know, has the most guaranteed money of any quarterback in the NFL. Every dollar of $230 million guaranteed. These were teams that were supposed to be in the thick of it. 1-5. Browns, with their loss to Philly, 20-16, are the first team since 2014 that has failed to score 20 points in any of their first 6 games. Ironically, that team in 2014 that also was so atrocious at scoring points, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Funny how that happens. Ironically, Deshaun Watson played one of his better games against Philly. Passer rating of 90.5 was his best of the year. But while he was playing one of his better games, 168 yards, no turnovers, the Browns failed to score an offensive touchdown. We talked about it with Kenny and JV, but the Browns' lone touchdown, Myles Garrett's blocked field goal, which was then recovered and returned for 6 by former Eagle Rodney McLeod. That's the only touchdown you're getting in a game. It doesn't feel good enough for any quarterback. I mean, shoot, we spent 10 minutes talking about how well all these rookies are playing. Doesn't feel good enough for any NFL quarterback. Certainly not one costing $230 million toward the salary cap. Kevin Stefanski already said post-game the Browns are going to stick with Watson. It's not surprising. That's been the messaging to this point. It's not the first time he's been asked that. I'm guessing it won't be the last time. Doesn't give you a ton of optimism this is going to improve. Doesn't give you good vibes considering schedule's not lightening up. Cincinnati and Baltimore up next. 2 big division games. We'll see where it goes, but 16 points per game in Cleveland. Haven't broken 20 on the season. All I can say for the Jacksonville Jaguars is it's lucky for them that this loss happened in London. I mean, the Browns were playing in the early window in front of the entire American football watching public. Jags at least get the benefit of playing early in the morning in the UK because this was 35-16 looks bad. This was a brutal performance from the entire team. I mean, yes, Trevor Lawrence missed throws. He threw an interception. Didn't get a lot of help either. His receivers dropped 2 touchdowns that I counted during the course of the game. His defense allowed 30 points or more for the 3rd time in 4 weeks. Jaguars have allowed 178 points. It's the 2nd worst total in the NFL. There was a fumble. When that wasn't happening, only 8 penalties, but they were just the most mind-numbing and back-breaking sorts of penalties. Like the Jags had a flag for 12 men on the field on a 3rd down. And then when that 12 men on the field flag turned 3rd and 8 into 3rd and 3, they had a defensive holding penalty on the next snap that turned a 3rd and 3 into a 1st down. And then several snaps later, the Bears score a touchdown. They had a false start on 3rd and inches that backed them up to a 3rd and 6. It's stuff like that. They look poorly coached. I would go as far as to say they look disinterested. And if you think that's me being overly harsh, Jags safety Andre Sisco put it concisely. He said there was a lot of quit from the Jags. I don't think there is a team with worse vibes, less to hang their hat on than the Jacksonville Jaguars through 6 weeks. And this, again, was a team that a lot of people expected to contend for the division, be in the playoff race. Hand up. I was one of them. I will wear that because it certainly looks silly right now. More than any team in the NFL, this looks like one that's on the brink. And they get another London game to try to right the ship. And I don't know. If that doesn't happen, all hell might break loose. It's just been that type of season for the Jags. We will see where it goes. Before we do that, though, we still got more in week 6. We will be back tomorrow. There's still one more game. The New York Jets hosting the Buffalo Bills in their first game since parting ways with Robert Saleh. We got all of that to look forward to. We're going to talk to Jay Glazer like we always do. So much coming your way, so we will be back in your feed on Tuesday. Make sure you're subscribed. If you want to follow us on social, we'd appreciate that. At NFL on Fox Pod. You can go find us on YouTube. Wherever you get your NFL news, wherever you find your podcasts, we will be there. We appreciate it so much, and we will talk to you real soon.